game publishers would have you believe that single-player games supposedly are on the decline. If you've logged onto any website in like the last 6 months, chances are you've saw some sort of edgy post from a self-entitled gamer proving them wrong. Obviously, there are still plenty of great single-player games coming out, so why would publishers fear the genre so much? As much as we like to believe it's true, publishers aren't stupid, they're greedy, so there's gotta be something driving them away, right? Today, we're gonna be talking about whether or not single-player games are dying. What's important to discuss on this issue is I don't think there's a clear-cut way to answer the question regarding single-player games' fates. Instead, I think it's important to dig into both sides of the equation. Larger publishers like EA are starting to stray away from the idea of single-player only experiences. Their titles may have some 3-hour mediocre campaign thrown in, but it's clear that less and less of their budgets are going to the single-player side of the spectrum. In the wake of the closing of Visceral Games and the revamping of Star Wars 1313, Battlefront's lack of single-player, Battlefront 2's sorry excuse for single-player, BioWare clearly changing gears from single-player oriented RPGs to whatever the hell Anthem actually is, and many more examples, EA seems to have thrown out any mentions of single-player games from their headquarters. EA and the other larger third-party publishers are steering away from video games and into the realm of live services. For those unacquainted with the term, I'd classify live services as games such as Overwatch, Rainbow Six Siege, Fortnite, and everything else kinda like that. These live services generally offer little to no single-player options and instead focus on a single title that is updated throughout the course of many years. The money in these types of games usually gets milked from an entry fee in most cases, and then the selling of DLC, microtransactions, fancy currency, whatever they want to plop in there. Games as a live service is a fine idea and by no means is really new. I'd consider games such as World of Warcraft, Team Fortress 2, or Counter-Strike as live services too, and none of these titles are by any means recent. Yet they still persist. These games, despite being older, still rake in money for their respective developers without requiring the production of an entirely new game. When you can make a game like Fortnite with a single map and a single game mode and subsequently rake in $2 million a day, well, it's really hard to tell a publisher to not go that route. These live services are one option, but what about the dedicated single-player experiences? I'm talking third-party games with little to no multiplayer, but a well-crafted campaign. Let's use Bethesda as an example. In the month of October, Bethesda published 2 new games, Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus and The Evil Within 2. In their opening month, neither of these games could break the top 10 best-selling games of the month. By the time Black Friday rolled around, barely a month later, these games were on sale for at least half of what they were originally rolled out as. Despite having excellent stories, full voice acting, interesting worlds, neither of these games did well in sales. Maybe you could attribute this to bad reviews. What if the games were legitimately bad? But they aren't. Both titles have above 80% scores all around and have been hailed as some of the best games in a year full of great games. But good reviews don't bring in money, sales bring in money, and now both games are making their ways to the bottom of the bargain bin. When you're a third-party publisher, it's hard to tell if making a single-player game is worth the risk anymore. If you manage to make a profit, it won't be by much. Despite the gaming world's spite towards those moving from the solo experience, can you really blame them? Business practices and greed aside, these companies have employees to pay and they need money to pay them. But that's enough about third party, because I think that the first party scene is a different battle entirely. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it's the opposite. The PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox, just the Nintendo and the PlayStation, have seen monumental success come from the production of their first party or console exclusive titles. Games like God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Persona 5 keeps PlayStations flying off the shelves despite these titles not having any sort of multiplayer. The Nintendo Switch has managed to do the same with titles like Super Mario Odyssey and The Legend of Zelda. While I wish I fully understood why the market is the way that it is, I don't, and I can't flat out tell you why people choose to buy the games that they buy, because the market is strangely unpredictable. However, it seems that there's a strong correlation between first-party support and sales. Games that are developed by Nintendo or Sony come strongly out the gates while others don't, or games that have exclusivity on the system manage to have the support that they need to get a strong audience. I think this is because console manufacturers aren't necessarily making games to get insane sales from the game itself. They're doing it to sell systems. If your game is exclusive to a company's console, you better believe that they're going to be doing everything that they can to make sure your game gets the marketing and funding that it needs to be successful. Unfortunately for games like Wolfenstein and The Evil Within, they aren't exclusives and are published through a third party. Console manufacturers may put a little effort into marketing these games, but ultimately won't give the same care that they would to a system seller like God of War. To wrap up this whole discussion, are single-player games dying isn't really a yes or no question. In the eyes of third-party publishers or developers? Probably. It's hard to warrant the cost of pretty visuals, voice actors, and story writers to really make the game stand out. Obviously, this isn't always the case, and we'll still have games like The Witcher to come show us that it can still be done. But the heavy risk is still there. Luckily for those who love to play games, there are still plenty of passionate teams out there who are willing to continue making these titles. The market may be changing, but I don't think we'll be seeing the single-player genre die anytime soon. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, go ahead and slam your damn fist through that subscribe button to watch more neato videos from me. And feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments. If you agreed, tell me. If you disagreed, yell at me. And lastly, have a great rest of your day.